All right, team, what's up? Good morning. Happy Thursday. Happy Leadership Thursday. Wonderful to have you here on the PT on Ice Daily Show. I am Dr. Jeff Moore, currently serving as the CEO of ICE and thrilled to be here as your host today. Before we jump into some content, we're going to chat about the challenges of seeing higher volume and executing this job perfectly. Want to mention a few upcoming courses. We are going to highlight rehab of the injured runner today. We have a few rehab of the injured runner courses before the end of the year. One of them is this weekend in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in Minnetonka, Minnesota. It's going to be just outside of cities there this weekend, Saturday, Sunday. Then next weekend, back at it, Megan Peach is over in Annapolis, Maryland. And then November 12, 13, right out here in my neck of the woods in Golden, Colorado. So rehab of the injured runner is one of those courses we don't have a ton of volume for as far as offerings. So if one of those work for you and you've been looking to treat triathletes or distance runners, endurance athletes of any kind, make sure to get to that course. It's Thursday. It's Gut Check Thursday. Let's do it. This one sounds brutal. So Alan claims 9 to 12 minutes, but we've got 27, 21, 15, 9. So fairly high volume rep scheme. And that's going to be calories on the row, but more importantly, single arm alternating devil press, 50, 35. Now, single arm is helpful, right? But 27 is still a lot of reps. So trying to kind of figure out banging out 27 calories in the rower and then jumping into 27 devil's press, 21, 15, 9, just seems like a whole lot of work. Love Alan's optimism, but I'm eyeballing that 12 to 15 mark for yours truly this week. If you do that workout, grab a time lapse, grab a video, hashtag Ice Train, hashtag Gut Check Thursday. We always love watching you all get after it with us every week. Okay, so let's chat about this. So let's chat about this idea of you can't do this job perfectly, seeing multiple patients an hour. So if you've been to some ICE courses, certainly lumbar and cervical spine, because those tend to be the ones where we really lay out the process, right? If you're in our virtual ICE mentorship, you probably watched the lecture of the process where we put forward that there is a best way to execute a perfect session, right? Individual things that happen, components that feed off one another, that are altered by one another, right? That a given part of your exam or your follow-up session is altered by the section right before it, and it nuances the part right after it. And these things all work together in a way that culminates in a perfect patient experience that delivers value, has a lot of psychological components, a lot of sales strategy is built into it to help the individual see why what they're going to do is going to have such a profound effect, and why their time is being well spent. And the way it's brought about has a very specific process. So after these courses, we'll often get the question of, I love it, sounded great, makes sense, right? But how do I do this with? And then, of course, after that is more than one patient at a time or 4 people in a given hour. And the really tough answer is simply that you can't. You would have to compromise somewhere. And where you compromise is a tough choice. I'm just putting forward that the attempt now or the striving for perfection is no longer attainable, because the things that we're talking about, time is a non-negotiable variable. So a lot of folks will try to push back on me and say, or justify it and say, but my tech or my aide can do the exercise or do whatever the modality might be, or do the scheduling part, and they can do all these pieces. If that was where the value resided, that would matter. But doing those things, checking those boxes, that is not where the value lies, right? The value is in the process, in the connection, in the relationship, in all the psychological components that we talk about. And those things are not about checking boxes. Let me give you a few examples of different times of the eval or the follow-up where time simply can't be hacked. It's the one thing that can't be hacked. It has to be present. The first one, it kind of lies in this philosophy that the magic of delivering value to these people that we're serving it exists many layers down in conversation where their true why exists. and in finding out what that is, right? Because only when we really get to what are you really doing here? Like, what truly brought you here? What was the emotional driver to make you actually rearrange your day and find the right physio and schedule and get in here and do all the paperwork? This is a big commitment. What is your actual why? I'll tell you right now, a bit of a spoiler, it's never knee pain. Nobody's why ever has been knee pain. The problem is not knee pain. It is not that knee pain is preventing them from running. That is nobody's why. It is not that knee pain is preventing them from running, which is preventing them from signing up for the local 5K. That isn't it. That is not their why. Their why is that they've got knee pain that is preventing them from running, that is preventing them from signing up from for the local 5K, that is being held in their father's honor, who passed away a number of years ago, was the track and field coach. It happens every year, and this patient has never missed one. And the thought of missing one really breaks their heart. That's the why. It's always more layers down. And here's the problem. You can't, if you don't get all the way down there, you're treating a superficial reason. And treating a superficial reason lacks emotional connection. And emotion is what motivates people. We've got to get all the way down there to what are you actually doing here? Because that's where we can connect with that person and say, you're in the right spot to get that really serious emotional thing accomplished. And here's the problem. You can't tag out on your way down. So as you're drilling down through those layers, you can't tag out. I can't say, hey, Nikki, come jump in my seat here. So I'm actually on the layer of can't sign up for the 5K. That's where I'm at. Take it from there. Get further down. You can't tag out. You have to keep working your way down and drilling your way down. Their why is deep, and it takes a bit of time to get there. Everything is like this. I can give as many examples as you want, but understanding the barriers to somebody's home exercise program compliance is a great example of having to drill down. It's not because somebody doesn't have time. Nobody has time. People make time for things they value. That's how everybody works. So when somebody tells you that they didn't get their home program done because they didn't have time, that is simply them saying, you have not gotten me to a point yet where I really value what you told me to do. So I didn't carve out time for it. And that requires drilling down, right? Why don't you believe it, right? Do you think that what I gave you isn't actually going to be effective for the condition we're trying to manage? Do I not really understand what kind of the big goal is and you don't think this is going to get you there? Did you do it once, but I didn't explain that you aren't going to move forward right away, how long it takes, accommodation, your expectations were out of line? You didn't get there. You didn't drill down far enough. It's not because they didn't have time. It's because they don't value it. They don't value it because you didn't go far enough. The only way to go far is to get depth. What I'm trying to tell you is that all of this stuff, all of the value, all of these relationships, these therapeutic alliances, these trust scenarios, connection requires depth, and depth requires time. And you can't drill down like this without it. And if you don't get there, when that connection piece isn't in place, we see things like a lack of motivation. We see things like a lack of compliance. We can go on. You understand the principle that drilling down requires time, and we can't hack that part of the process. Let me build on that a little bit. So another good example is on the follow-up session. So understanding their why, getting all the way down there, is only as good as your ability when they come back in, when we're on visit 2 or visit 4 or visit 9, to show them that they're actually on the path to achieving it. So at all ICE courses, we say that you never treat in the first 5 minutes because you're selling, right? So you're selling them on the fact that they are investing their time and resources in a place where they're getting a good return on that investment, right? So that first part of every single session is all about that. But there's actually another piece of that opening act. It's not just that sell by reassessing and demonstrating that value or building that bike, as we like to say. There's more to it. The very, very first thing that happens when someone rolls into the room is, hey, Jill, before I jump in, did anything new at all happen between last time and this time that you wanted to discuss? Anything you wanted to bring up? You got to offload their RAM. They've been gone for 4 to 6 days. There's so much in life has happened. What things came up? What tripped you up? What was unexpected? What is new? What do you have to ask? You got to offload all that RAM before we go for that really big sale and then show them new stuff and dive into a full session. We've got to offload their RAM, and there's so much gold here. The things they say, right? Last time I totally forgot to mention X. I was wrong about when it starts hurting during the day. Now that I had some time to think about it, what I told you last time was wrong. Well, Jill, that matters because now my irritability gauge is totally adjusted. I'm going to alter my dose of the exercise and what you're doing at home because the data you gave me last time compared to the data you gave me this time requires two entirely different prescriptions. So that's absolutely gold. Doc, I do have access to a stationary bike. Well, Jill, that's a game changer. Like you've got that cervical predict now, but instead of trying to get your heart rate up with step ups, we're going to crush that bike. It's way more effective to do that. Now your entire home exercise organization is different. By different, I mean better. This is absolute gold. Everything that they're saying to you is allowing you to fine tune your aim. This is why every single session you're getting more and more precise. This data is key. You're kind of guessing at the beginning, right? It's an educated guess, but you're kind of guessing as far as, what's the dose and what can they actually get to at home? There's a lot of guessing, but every time they come back, they're refining that hypothesis, that guess on best plan of care, and it's getting more and more precise. Then after you offload that RAM, now you sell, right? So now it's go time. Okay, Jill, last time you were here, you had drove over from work. That pain was down your leg to your knee, into your calf. You had a little bit of that toe tingling. How is it? This is the same time of day. You just came from work. How we doing? That's when Jill says, Doc, you know what? I was going to come in here and tell you I wasn't getting a whole lot better, but now that you say that, I don't have the calf or toe. It's only in the back of my leg. Jill, great news, right? Here it is, right, team? It's not the patient's job to know if they're getting better. It's your job to show them. You're demonstrating the value of what you and that patient are doing together. Now we talk about sleep. Last time it was this. How is it today? Let's have a look at the straight leg raise. Let's have a look at the ULTT. Okay, having seen what we saw here, what do we think, right? Here's that big sell, that what we're doing together is meaningful. Team, think about this. Jill rolled in. We asked between last time and this time, what do you got? What's new? What'd you find out? Right? Where do we have to refine? Okay, all of that being said, let's have a look at where we are compared to last time. Having seen all that data, what do we think? Right? All of that. We're probably 12, 13 minutes in. We haven't really started in the way that most people look at starting. Yet all of that is critical to whatever we're doing next being done perfectly. Now, I'm going to skip the next part. I'm going to skip the fact that the actual combination package of precision manual therapy and exercise dosing and prescription, which I think takes about 20 to 25 minutes. Like if you're going to do a perfect job of implementing manual therapy, whatever that might be, your massage techniques, your needling, your manipulation, or mobs, right? And then getting out and doing some actual loading and reassessing after that loading to sell again that not only was the manual beneficial, look how much better you feel after the precision exercise, right? All of these things that takes about 25 minutes. Now, some people will say, well, no, I have somebody else do that. Well, that must be challenging because when you come out, you have all this new data from your patient you didn't know last time. So do you tell that new person, do you have a sit down for 7 or 8 minutes and say, hey, some really big things have come to light. The irritability we had last time is actually a bit off because Jill has some new data for us. There's new equipment at home we didn't know about. So we're going to skip this and go to this and change the home program. Are we going to really relay the information? If not, are we just going to go off the old data, right? That isn't precision refined, that is okay at best. Anyhow, I'm not going to go in to that 25 minutes, but you can imagine, I feel like the same person needs to do it. And it takes about that time to be done perfectly and to have all the sales components built in. What I want to finish with is talking about the peak end rule, the finish of the session, which if we're seeing multiple folks, oftentimes we've lost that person, right? So they're finishing with somebody, maybe a tech or an aide or a PTA or somebody different than the person who started. And that's a problem. Because the patient psychologically, thinking about that peak end rule, right? We talk about that all the time. You kind of feel about an experience the way the experience finishes. The patient's going to feel emotionally about the session many times the way they felt right at the end. If that end is somebody random trying to schedule them, right? Maybe it's a tech or whatever who's like, hey, I think Jill has to get on 3 times. And Jill's like, actually, I talked to my therapist. We're only going to do 2. Okay, how's Thursdays? No, that won't work. I talked to somebody else about why. Like, what is happening here? And why are we dropping the ball here? And it feels so clumsy and disjointed. Heaven forbid that person has a question, which they probably do. They're now 45, 60 minutes into being here. They've learned a lot today. They're kind of contrasting it with what they learned last time and looking forward, but a little bit confused going forward. Always the case. They probably have a question. Hey, am I supposed to drop that one exercise because we're going to do the one that I was doing in the room with the strap? And now this person says, well, I don't, yeah, sure. Right? I'm sure that'll be fine. What that means, I'm sure that'll be fine, is Jill, it doesn't really matter. None of this stuff matters. That's what that sounds like to Jill. When somebody else who wasn't connected to the original decision making is saying, yeah, sure, go ahead, make that switch. I'm sure that'll be fine. What that's telling Jill is, Jill, none of this matters. And when none of it matters, it's not valued. And when it's not valued, time isn't made for it. And when time isn't made for it, compliance is terrible. And when compliance is terrible, recovery is mediocre at best. These are the problems. When you're not connecting these dots, it's a psychological issue. If those questions at the end are exactly where you drive it home. Jill, that's exactly right. And remember why we're doing that. Yes, we're making that change, but remember we chatted about why that's going to make so much more sense. Now that you have that bike, our heart rate's going to be higher. So a lot of that cardio, you're going to do even better between this time and next time than you did between last time and this time because of these changes. This is where the exclamation point is put on if it's the same person that did the other parts of the session. Team, when I serve tables, to finish the drill here, when I serve tables, I always took pride in telling folks, walking up to that table and saying, I'm going to be taking care of you tonight. I loved that moment. I loved rolling up to a four top and saying, you know what, put the menus down. What's up with the menus? I know what's on the menus, but I know what's not on the menus. I got you. I'm going to take care of you. They don't know what's all back there. We don't reprint the menus every day. We have a lot of new stuff that's not even on there. What do you say we put the menus down? I'm looking forward to taking care of you for the next who knows how long, right? But I'm going to bring you through an incredible process. When I said, I'm taking care of you tonight, I didn't mean for some of the night. I didn't mean that we were going to go a little bit of the ways and then tag team. It's not that we didn't have other competent wait staff that could check the boxes. We could get these people fed, right? A bunch of people could get these folks fed. We could check the boxes together, but you know how different that feels. You've been at that dinner where you really connected with your waiter or waitress, and halfway through they said, hey, so-and-so is going to take over. You know the emotion you had. You were bummed. It was like, oh man, I really like that person. I was really into it, right? Imagine that's for dinner. And you had that emotional response. Imagine if it was for your health, for your injury, that you actually have a deep emotional why, which brought you to this place to try to solve. And now you have that disjointed feeling. Team, there's so much of this that's psychological. In the argument of, no, I can have this person do that to their arm and that person can do that to their arm. It's bigger than that. Even if you can make that argument, which I would argue you really can't, but even if you could, it wouldn't make sense. It can't be done perfectly when it's done that way. Now, maybe this doesn't make any sense to you, but if it doesn't make sense, we might just look at our jobs very differently. But I'm still going to make a plea to you that however you do look at it, decide objectively, right? With other things not factoring in, finances, etc. Decide objectively in the way you view it, what perfect execution looks like. What does perfect look like? We have an argument for what that looks like in our world. But if that doesn't resonate with you, then you figure out what does perfect look like so that you can pursue it every time. Because my argument is it is only the constant pursuit of quality that has a chance to keep your fire burning for many years to come. It's not about just getting the job done. It's about every session trying to get the job done perfectly. That's the beautiful pursuit. We believe that requires one-on-one attention with our patients. Give it some thought, team. Have a wonderful Thursday. Hope you all are well. Sorry that was a bit long. ptonice.com. It's where all the goods are. See ya.